Hello there. Welcome to Just the Dis. My name's Brian. We talk about Blu-rays here. And I know I've been doing a lot of these lately, but it's just a fun way for me to mix together a bunch of different titles and talk to you guys about them. And by that I mean filling up the new discs box. In this case, I've got some discs in here that are new, but also there's some in here that I'm just getting around to watching. So this is what we're talking about. Maybe. So it's a bunch of different stuff here. Let me get started with a couple westerns. In fact, I decided kind of to make it a Gregory Peck western double bill. I actually watched this second, but I'd recommend it. I was going to say I'd recommend it first, but actually watching them out of order wasn't bad either. This one is from 1950, I believe. Yes, it is the Gunfighter. I think I showed this briefly in a video I did of my Criterion pickups from the last Criterion sale. But I didn't get a chance to watch it until tonight, and it's great. It's like a really solid Western that, I'd wish I'd seen before. I don't know what I was thinking. I guess maybe I was thinking it might be a little drier or something. I'm not sure, but this is really solid stuff. So Gregory Peck plays a gunfighter named Jimmy Ringo, and he is notorious throughout the West as maybe the fastest gun there is. Like faster than Wyatt Earp, faster than Billy the Kid. He is the man. And as cool as that sounds, it's also very much a curse for him. And we get that in the very first scene of the movie where he walks into a bar, he just wants to have a drink, and a young upstart comes on over. Richard Jekyll, I believe, is the actor that plays him, and it's very much the same thing every time. Somebody's like, "He don't look so tough," and then they put him in a position where he has to draw. They draw on him, or they back him into a corner and just say, I'm not going to let you out of this until we have this out and see who the tougher man is. And because he is so good, that means a lot of people have been killed. He says something like 12 that have had that sort of conflict with him. But so anyway, he ends up killing this guy, and then he has to leave. Despite it being self-defense, he has to leave town. And it has to do with the fact that this guy has three brothers who don't care that their youngest brother totally picked a fight with him, just the stupidest thing you could do. They want revenge for his death. One of them's played by Alan Hale Jr., the skipper. It's fun when he plays menacing characters. So anyway, he hightails it out of there, and he goes to Cheyenne. And we don't know why initially, but not to give away too much, but he's there to see his ex-wife and son, and he knows they're there, but he doesn't know if they're under a new name or whatever. And he meets his buddy, the sheriff, this guy Mark, and they have a history together. But Mark is like, "Man, you got to go. Like, I know there's going to be trouble if you're in town." And he's like, "Well, let me just stay for a couple hours, go see if she'll talk to me." She doesn't want to talk to him, but then he's trying to get other people to help him with that so he can just see his ex-wife, see his son. But there's lots of issues. This, group of brothers is coming. There's another young upstart played by Skip Homeyer, and he seems to think, maybe he can take Jimmy Ringo, and that's a whole thing. But it's just got a great bottled up kind of tension to it, and it's a really breezy, fast 85 minutes, and just a really great Western. Like, I really dug it a lot. It's Criterion. I probably mentioned the last time, 4K digital restoration with uncompressed monaural soundtrack, new interview about director Henry King and the Gunfighter with filmmaker, writer, and archivist Gina Telleroli, New video essay on editor Barbara McLean by film historian and author J.E. Smith, and audio excerpts of interviews with King and McLean from 1970 and 71. Those are really cool, those excerpts. But another great disc from Criterion. I know a lot of people already picked this up, but I was just pleasantly surprised when I threw this on as sort of a whim. Like, oh, I've got this other, I'll show you the other one in a second. I've got this other Gregory Peck Western. Why don't I finally watch The Gunfighter? And quite rewarding. Definitely one of my favorite discoveries of this year so far. And here is the other Gregory Peck Western. This is Shootout from 1971. So you've got 21 years in between these films. This is one that was completely off my radar until it was programmed at the New Beverly by Quentin Tarantino at one point. And I think he wrote an essay about it. I could be misremembering that, but I just remember at the time he's like, it's not a great movie, but he definitely made a case for it being a good movie. And I totally get exactly what he's talking about. It isn't great, but it is very good. And it has to do with Gregory Peck. In this case, is a guy who's just gotten out of prison, 7 years in prison for a bank robbery. And we come to find out, not to spoil too much, but, well, I won't spoil, but he's out for vengeance against another guy, and we don't exactly know why. But the other guy has hired 3 thugs to keep an eye on him. And one of them's played by Robert F. Lyons, who is really good as just a loose cannon, crazy. He's just out of his mind, this guy. And you're just like, this guy will do anything, including kill anybody. He's just one of those very unpredictable characters who's very cocky and just dangerous, very dangerous. So the one other thing that's thrown into the mix is he's Gregory Peck's character is waiting for a little bit of money from a woman that he left with the money with her 7 years ago, and he wants to use the money to pay anybody that will give him the information, like where he can find the guy he wants to find. So the train comes in town with, he's hoping the money, but instead the engineer's like, we've brought this little girl, and it's the daughter of the woman, and it's unclear as to whether or not it's his daughter, but it seems like a pretty good chance it could be. And so then he sort of has to make a decision about keeping her or finding a place for her, because he still wants to take care of his business. And it's cool because the movie could veer into like Apple Dumpling Gang territory, which isn't a bad thing, but that's not the movie I wanted to watch. But the little girl is like very tough, and they have a really fun relationship, and he's very kind to her and protective of her. But it does sort of build to a cool climax, some good tension throughout. And I don't want to give away too much more, but I did enjoy this one. And this is one that was pretty rare and hard to see. I remember when it was programmed at the New Beverly, I wanted to see it, and I couldn't even, maybe there's a VHS of it. There must be, but I couldn't track down a DVD. I couldn't track down a Blu-ray. So I'm very glad that it came out subsequently from Kino. It also has a knockout commentary from film critic Nick Pinkerton, a guy that I like very much as a film commentator. I always recommend his tracks. I've never been disappointed by one. He is, like I said, in that sort of Tim Lucas category, just academic, but has a sense of humor and just really sharp guy. I really like his stuff a lot. So that was a welcome track on this. And this is what the back looks like. All right. So those are my Gregory Peck Westerns. I've got one more Western, but it's kind of a Kung Fu Western. And it's called The Fighting Fist of Shanghai Joe. This is from Wild East, a company I wasn't familiar with. And this is another one that I saw programmed at the New Beverly. So I believe Mr. Tarantino is also a fan of this film. It says, by 1973, the Euro Western was beginning to fade, and at the same time the martial arts genre was on the rise. The answer to keep the Western genre continuing was to combine the two. This was the idea behind The Fighting Fist of Shanghai Joe. A Chinese immigrant skilled in martial arts arrives in San Francisco in 1882. Looking for a job, he applies for work at a ranch and immediately learns about a racial discrimination, as well as the ranch hands are determined to put the Chinaman in his place. Believing that he can easily beat the small Chinaman, they attack him and try to beat him up, but Joe beats them using his special skills and is hired by Kay, the foreman of Spencer, a wealthy businessman in the area, to move his cattle herd to Mexico. But Joe soon discovers that instead of cattle, they are smuggling Mexican workers. Stopped by the sheriff and his men, the gunman Kay quickly escapes. Anyway, it starts going into more plot stuff, but the idea is he comes into town trying to look for a job, immediately gets himself into trouble. There's a whole lot of racist folks in this town, and nobody's willing to give him a chance or even not be completely awful to him. And he eventually sort of runs afoul of this large businessman. And I'm not going to spoil too much, but I will say that basically he's put in a position where it looks like the businessman tries to kill him in a really creative way with a bull, and that scene is resolved in a way that I've never seen in a film before, and it's pretty remarkable, to the point where I had to like show my son. I had to be like, hey buddy, come here, look, check this out, I've never seen this in a movie before. And he then finds himself sort of man to man with this rich guy, and he lets him go. And it's one of those decisions where you're like, oh man, I really wish he hadn't done that, but he's a good guy and you get why he did it. But of course, this rich guy is not having any of it, and he sends more people after Joe to kill him, and it climaxes with a really interesting choice in terms of the last bad guy. And I'm not going to spoil any of that, but great action in this, some really good kung fu fights, and just some really fun, like they use trampolines for some of the jumping, and he does some cool jumps and flips in the fights. And I have to say, I enjoyed this movie despite all the evil people in it. There was a lot of Joe kicking the butts of a lot of people, really. And so it's a fun combo of that sort of spaghetti western and martial arts kung fu genre film, and I really dug it. I'm glad I got to see it. Here's what the back looks like. And inside. Now, the tricky thing with this one is that I think I got it on Amazon. You may be able to find it on eBay now, unfortunately, but I want to say I got it, like late last year, late 2020. I think it came out in October. I probably got it in November or December. And now I go to Amazon and the listing has been completely removed. And I don't know the story with that. I don't know if there's some issue with the type of film it is, or if there was some issue with the distributor, or if they just had a really limited run and they sold out really fast. I have no clue. But I'm glad I got a hold of a copy before it disappeared from there. But I'm sure there's a way for folks to track it down if they're interested, and I do recommend it. Like I said, eBay would be one way, but there may be other places that have stock on this film as it was recently released. So that was a lot of fun. Fighting Fists of Shanghai Joe. Let's see here. That's from 73. I got another very enjoyable actioner called Kill Squad. 12 Hands, 12 Feet, 24 Reasons to Die. And this is a German media book. It says, I want to say it says it's Region B locked, but this actually plays fine in my regular player. So you don't need a multi-region player. You've got all the stats down there. The audio is 2.0 mono. They have a German, English, Spanish, and Russian track. It has a DVD and a Blu-ray. But the Blu-ray looks really nice, I gotta say. One of those cases like the old Back to the Future where you squeeze the bottom. I kind of hate those, but it's fine. It's got a booklet in German. Oh no, it's in English. So a little essay action there, but this is directed by Patrick G. Donahue, who did a movie called Parole Violators, which I do recommend. Very crazy. He's sort of like, I don't want to say Don Dohler, but like the action Don Dohler, maybe. Like the guy who would do what you could call this like a backyard kung fu movie, just where it's lower budget and the acting is of a certain level, and that's fine. But the fights are really great, and there's a lot of great fights in this, and it's just got a great setup. It's like this guy and his wife have this horrible break-in to their house, and she is, I think she's killed at the beginning, and he calls upon his ex-Vietnam vet buddies to help him figure out who killed the wife, and they are happy to join in. And it's a great thing where we get to see all the buddies. Each one gets his own like scene where he's like introduced and has like a big fight with somebody and just beats the crap out of whoever they happen to be. And then they ask him like, hey, we need so-and-so needs your help now. And they're like, oh yeah. It's like they have this dedication to each other that's really charming. But they're just like, yep, I'll drop whatever I'm doing and come and help now that I'm done kicking those guys' butts. And so we really literally get that with like 4 or 5 characters. They go and find one, then the other 2 go and look for the third guy, and they run into him in a fight. And then there's a great scene where once they've assembled the whole team, they show up in front of the guy who they're supposed to help, who's in a wheelchair. And they each demonstrate like a special weapon, like, hey, we still got it. This is what I'll be using, kind of. So it's like just a crazy amount of action tropes and fun. And it's just a blast. Like, it's really a fun movie to watch. So this one, I know that Diabolic DVD has a placeholder for it. You can put your name in the email list to get notified if they ever get another copy. I think I got it from Amazon Denmark. I don't think I could find it at Amazon UK. You might be able to find it on eBay. I know this one's getting a little expensive too, because it's Turbine Media. No, who did this one? Yeah, Turbine Media. And they tend to do limited runs, and their discs tend to get hard to get your hands on soon after release. But this one is definitely worth tracking down if you're looking for a fun action movie. The Blu-ray transfer looks good. I mean, this is easily the kind of film Vinegar Syndrome could put out at some point, and I would love it if they did. But for now, I'm happy to have this media book. Very good media book of Kill Squad from, I think, 1982. Okay. Another Kino title, The Dawn is Dead. This one is from 1973, directed by Richard Fleischer, who is one heck of a genre master, a guy who just did a ton of stuff in all kinds of different genres. I'm thinking of like The Vikings and 10 Rillington Place and Soylent Green, and he just was all over the place and was a very good director whenever he showed up. Like, I really find him to be a solid workman kind of director. And I'm on a run here of films, and I didn't even really think about some of these. This is another one that was programmed at the New Beverly as part of a bunch of double features with the Godfather films. And this is definitely a movie that's trying to cash in on the Godfather. It is a film that came from Universal, and it's, like I said, 73, so a couple years after the Godfather. It says, from Richard Fleischer, the outstanding director of The Narrow Margin. Oh yeah, one of the great noirs ever, the original Narrow Margin. Compulsion, The Boston Strangler, and Mr. Majestic, all great. Comes this action-packed mob classic starring screen legend Anthony Quinn. And then it says, Power built an empire. Passion destroyed it. When the reigning Don dies, a bloody all-out power struggle ensues to determine who will be the next capo. Don Angelo, that's Anthony Quinn, a notorious crime czar, is poised to take control of the syndicate, but when he discovers that an ambitious lieutenant, Robert Forster, from his own family has become a rival for the love of his beautiful mistress, the Don vows to turn the streets red with blood of the traitor, triggering an internal mob war of wills and weapons in this hard-hitting tale of betrayal, ambition, and revenge. Let's see here. It says, based on the novel by Marvin H. Albert, Duel at Diablo, and co-starring Frederick Forrest, Al Lettieri, Joe Santos, Abe Vigoda, Victor Argo, Sid Haig, and Vic Tayback. So you have a great supporting cast. But yeah, it's a really good Robert Forster performance, a great Anthony Quinn performance, and Forster is like sort of a lower level mob guy that has higher ambitions and has a crew with Fred Forrest and I think Al Lettieri, and they are trying to maybe take over. And yeah, as it says, like they end up falling for the same girl, played I think by Angel Tompkins, and things go bad. But I don't know if it's action packed. There's a lot of tension, and there are definitely bursts of action. But it's a really solid film, and one that I had heard of, but I hadn't paid close enough attention to until that New Beverly pairing with The Godfather. Then I was like, oh, I should really give this the time of day. This has a audio commentary by film historian and critic Sergio Mims, who's very solid. He does a great job. I think I mentioned, maybe I didn't mention his commentary on, he does one on Willie Dynamite for Arrow. He does one on Bustin' Loose for Kino. It seems like they're using him a little bit more, and he's very solid. I like his work, so I enjoyed that as well. This looks to be just a mono track. I can't tell what kind of audio this has, actually. Standard Kino Lorber Classics Blu-ray. But yeah, solid stuff from Richard Fleischer, and I'm glad to have this on Blu-ray. This is also getting a Blu-ray, I think, from, I want to say Indicator, but that doesn't seem quite right. Maybe it's Eureka. One of those two, overseas. All right. Next we have the new Blu-ray of Runaway Train, also from Kino. No reversible artwork on this. You get the same as your slip. This is a Region A disc. It has a brand new 2K transfer, and it has, I don't know if this is a new commentary, but it's commentary with co-star Eric Roberts, film historians David Del Val, and C. Courtney Joyner. I didn't get a chance to check that out yet. It also has the Trailers from Hell with Rod Lurie. So, for those that don't know, this is a Cannon film, one of the best films they probably ever produced, I think. Just in terms of the cast and the tension, you have this story of a prison break that turns into a runaway train movie, and the original story is by Akira Kurosawa and Edward Bunker, who wrote the novel No Beast So Fierce, which is actually quoted at the end of this film. I think it's from a Shakespeare play, Henry VIII? No, I'm going to get that wrong. I don't know what Shakespeare play, but I didn't catch that when I was reading No Beast So Fierce, which is a great novel, and it's the novel that Straight Time is based on, the Dustin Hoffman film. So Eddie Bunker is in this movie, and he helped co-write it off of a Kurosawa story. And it is directed by Andrei Konchalovsky, who I don't know that well, but pretty well-directed movie. Basically, you have a really bad dude played by Jon Voight, who is in this prison in Alaska, and the prison is run by John P. Ryan, who's maybe one of the best, like, horribly mean, incredibly vindictive and driven prison wardens in the history of cinema. Like, he is just so got it in for the Jon Voight character. Basically, he has sealed him into his cell for 3 years, like welded him in. And apparently there's a lawsuit, and Jon Voight's character, Manny, is able to get himself sealed into this cell, and then he gets help from sort of a slightly lower status prisoner played by Eric Roberts to smuggle him out of the prison. They make a break for a train yard, and they end up on this train just as the train conductor has a heart attack as he's pushing the throttle forward and falls off the train. So the train begins to pick up speed, and then they're stuck on a runaway train, and that's sort of the driving force of the film moving forward. And John P. Ryan is determined to find them, and there's this whole drama at the train control center with Kenneth McMillan and T.K. Carter and some other faces. Rebecca De Mornay shows up as one of the employees of the train company. It's a really solid, one man against nature, one man against another man kind of scenario, with the warden being the guy who's just like, I will get him. He will not escape. And Eric Roberts sort of looking up to the Jon Voight character, but being Jon Voight's character being very wary of this young punk that's helping him, But anyway, really solid upon this rewatch. The new 2K scan looks great. I do think I'm going to hold on to my Arrow Blu-ray. I also used to have the Twilight Time, but I think I'm okay, just having these two. But of course, this has the new transfer. This one's from a while back, but it has, let's see here, Running on Empty, an interview with director Andrei Konchalovsky, From Thespian to Fugitive, star Jon Voight shares his memories of his Academy Award nominated role. I missed that. Sweet and Savage, Eric Roberts recalls his Academy Award nominated performance. And The Calm Before the Chaos, co-star Kyle T. Hefner remembers Runaway Train, as well as trailer commentary by Rod Lurie. So you've got a few other extras on this one, and this is, of course, Region B locked. I think both of these are 2.0 stereo, as far as I can tell. But really solid Canon film, and if you haven't seen it, it's worth checking out. It's not really streaming too many places. The last time I looked, it was only streaming on Apple TV, and that's it. And it used to be, a lot of these MGM titles were streaming on Amazon and such, but I feel like we may be getting to a place where the MGM stuff that was plentiful on Amazon Prime may be less so moving forward. So you may want to consider picking this up, owning it physically. It's worth it. It's a good movie. I've got one more here. This is another reissue of a Code Red title from Kino, The Forest, and it's the same disc from 2016. You can see there 2016 HD scan, commentary, 2 commentary tracks, and a featurette. This one is pretty bonkers. I watched this for Slashers Movies episode that we did for our Patreon for Pure Cinema. And let's see here. 2 couples plan a trip into the forest, but they didn't count on a killer on the loose with a taste for human flesh. The maniac is haunted by... Okay, well, I don't want to give away that stuff because it's actually kind of a fun surprise. But yeah, so they go to the forest. There's a dude in there, and he's killing people and maybe eating them. And there are some weird scenarios. There's a fight where one character uses a pitchfork and the other uses half a bicycle. That's the first time I've seen a half a bike pitchfork fight in a movie, and it's very entertaining. There is some really crazy bonkers stuff with ghost kids that are wandering the forest, and I'm not going to explain any more of that. But yeah, it is a bizarre film, and one that I ultimately enjoyed, despite it taking about 25 minutes to kind of really kick into the bonkers. But it's definitely, if you like weird slasher movies or just bonkers horror films, I gotta say this isn't one that may totally disappoint if that's all you're looking for. And sometimes that's all I need. So yeah, this is a reissue. This is an all region disc. There you can see. And I think the transfer looked fine. If I remember, I have this disc from the previous issue. But I had to mention it because I do think it's worth your time. Again, if you're into the crazy, just what is happening kind of movies, I think those are fun every once in a while. So anyway, that is it for this collection update. Hopefully you don't mind me doing these collection updates so much this month. But like I said, I just like to be able to throw together a stack of movies with no plan or anything to tie them together, really. Just what I feel like watching, and this is what I've felt like watching and talking about lately. But if you could do me a favor and like this video, that would be wonderful. Let me know, again, as always, have you picked up anything this week that you're excited about, or is there something coming out next week you're excited about? I'm always looking for new stuff that you guys are getting. And subscribe to the channel if you like what I'm doing. I'd love a subscription, and even push the little bell so you can see when I'm putting out these new videos. That would be wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. I'll talk to you guys later.